Today's message from Dr. Reverend Christian Sorensen was recorded October 28, 2018, and it's titled Paddling Out, Affirming I Joyously Embrace the Adventures of My Prospering Life. And today we welcome back the spirit, talent, and voice of Angel Travis, who can be found on Facebook. Come visit us at seasidecenter.org, the website, or join us in Encinitas, California sometime, where we always have great music, a spirited message, and a joyful, loving, vibrant community that await you.
Good morning, Seaside. So I'm always pleased to be here with you, filling in for our beautiful friend, Miss Rebecca Jade, whose birthday was just this last Friday. So when you see her next week, give her a big squeeze. But it's my pleasure to introduce our friend, you know her very well, Miss Angel Travis. She's got a brand new album out, and she has a Christmas album that she also brought for sale. So please visit her and enjoy.
Hello, Seaside family. I'll tell you what is on my mind. Just stop the talking, the wasting of all of our time. The story brought you here, and you're alright. And you got love for those who believe in you can fly. Hard when you're scared, you push right on through your fears, and you change. Oh, you got to change. Yeah. So when you walk asleep, where anything goes, you wanna let it go, let the drama go. You wanna take back your life, receive prosperity, open the door. You wanna be in the light, let it go and change. When it is hard, when you
Angel Travis being that change. Oh my goodness. You have changed and just evolved in front of our eyes. Be the change, open up, receive the good, the love, be the light. I like it. Woo. That is the perfect song for this wonderful adventure that we were on in the Treasures of the Sea. I mean, the first week we talked about really the importance of recognizing there's a sea of infinite possibilities. Like the infinite has untold treasures, but it begins by recognizing that there's some treasure out there that is waiting for you. It was Thornton Wilder, American essayist, won 3 Pulitzer Prizes, our town. It said that we are most alive in the moment our hearts are conscious of the treasures. Here he is talking about being conscious, our heart being conscious of the treasures. That's when we're most alive, is I'm living in a sea of treasures, infinite potential, and it's waiting for me to discover. And so the next week and last week was what Angel's song was all about. That change, open up to receive the good, be the light. That it was so perfect, because you got to change. You know how amazing it is to think that I want change, but I don't want to change. That's kind of silly. But I hear people time and time again, they want to change, but they don't want to give up their position. You've got to have the consciousness, the mental equivalent for it to show up in your life. And so for a change to happen, you're the one who's got to change. You got to begin to be in that place to be receptive at a new level. I saw a poster of a tramp leaning against a Rolls Royce, and the caption was, "I'd give $10 to be one of them millionaires." And that's the thing. Yeah, it's worth $10 for $1 million. I don't think so. You need to have that $1 million consciousness. I was interesting this last week. People are playing the lotto for $1.5 billion, and I said, "You're going to tithe?" They say, "Absolutely, we're going to tithe." I win, we get a tithe, and I ask, "How much is 10% of that?" I'm not going to ask you, but it's interesting how many people thought maybe 10 million, 10 and a half. You're missing some zeros there. If you're playing in a bigger house, you've got to know the dimensions you're playing in, because in spirit, it's all in the house. It's all in the ocean. The infinite is there. And so it begins by recognizing, there's greater good waiting for me. And I've got to venture out into the sea, but I got to be willing to change my consciousness. I got to be willing to morph into a place of greater receptivity, of greater good. And so, but the key then is, and that's what today is about. All this has been the lead up to this moment. And that is, you got to paddle out. We're Surftown, USA here, right? Encinitas? Yeah, hey, good to see you. And so, with paddling out, you got to leave the shore. You can sit there, you can look at the waves, they're breaking right, left, looking good. But you still have to paddle out. You can't just sit on the shore thinking about how cool it would be dropping into one of those monsters that are out there. You've got to be willing to leave. You can sit there and plan all you want, and that's one of the challenges. I mean, I'm all for planning. Planning is a good thing. You got a vision, you got a plan. But I've watched people just sit there and plan and forget to paddle out. I've watched people, I'm going to plan to get this job, and a year later, they're still planning to get a particular job. You got to take the action. You get that? Good. God, that's what I'm working at towards today. You got to be, I like what Jonathan Winter said. He said, if your ship doesn't come in, swim out to meet it, right? If it's not there, you got to go out and meet it. You've got to take the action if you want satisfaction. Oh, I like that. Could be a bumper sticker. You got to take the action if you want satisfaction. The last 6 letters of the word satisfaction? Was it action? A-C-T-I-O-N. That's where the action is. But what do people do? They wait. Right? Okay, I plan. Now I'm going to wait for the tide to change. I'm going to wait for the weather to change. I'm going to wait for that right person to show up. I'm going to wait for the astrological planets to line up. Mercury aligns with Mars and the planet, the song. They're going to wait for that right moment. Going to wait for the inspiration. Going to wait until there's no more pain. Going to wait. We just continue to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. You got to paddle out if you want to ride the waves of life. So, this is not a new philosophy. We got it as kids, and I've got proof. Dr. Seuss's, the places we would go. You remember that one? This book has become a gift you see in Barnes & Noble during the graduation season. They give this to adults now. And there's a great page in here that talks about the waiting place. Remember that one? The waiting place. For people are just waiting. They're waiting for a train to go, or a bus to come, or a plane to go, or the mail to come, or the rain to go, or the phone to ring, or the snow to snow, or waiting around for a yes or no, or waiting for their hair to grow. Everyone is just waiting. Waiting for the fish to bite, or waiting for the wind to fly a kite, or waiting around for a Friday night, or waiting perhaps for their Uncle Jake, or a pot to boil, or a better break, or a string of pearls, or a pair of pants, or a wig with curls, or another chance. Everyone is just waiting. No, that's not for you. Somehow you'll escape all that waiting and staying, and you'll find the bright places where the boom bands are playing. There you go. Boom bands for us all. You got to stop sitting on the shore. You got to get out there. You got to paddle out into the water. You got to get in the water. You got to get in the game. You got to get on the field. You got to get into action. You got to get into that business plan. You got to get it off the paper and the planning, the waiting game, and get going with it in your life. Clement Stone's one of the great philanthropists of our era. Made his zillions in insurance in those earlier days. Motivational inspirer of business or businesses around the world. Anyway, he used to give out a lapel pin that said, "Do it now." Stop waiting. Paddle out. Get going. Do it now. Ray Kroc, one of our local guys until he wasn't. I'm sorry, bless your heart. I'm sorry. Anyway, he said 3 of the keys to success is 1, being in the right place at the right time. 2, knowing that you're in the right place at the right time, which is kind of our first point to prosperity here, is recognizing there's this infinite abundance that's there. And 3, taking action. You got that? Taking action. They're all saying, all of the masterful manifestors say, you got to get moving. You got to have the action. If you want satisfaction, you got to have the action. You got to paddle out there, get into the waves. You got to listen to those urges inside your soul and honor those. Ray Bradbury said, if you want to experience the success of a risk, you jump off a cliff and you build your wings underneath you as you're going down. Jump off the cliff, take that risk, jump off the cliff, and you build the wings on your way down, is what he said. But the interesting thing, there's a lot of interesting things about him, but he shared from in a story you can find in a book. It was called The Art and the Zen of Writing. He tells the story of when he was living in an apartment at $30 a month. And one day he was just inspired to take a walk out on the beach, and he walked out on the beach and he saw a pile of, wood and stuff. It kind of looked like bones of a dinosaur. And that night when he was in bed, all of a sudden he was inspired to jump out of bed and write a story about the dinosaurs that roamed. And he sold it to, not the New Yorker, there was another Saturday Evening Post, and they ran his story. And there was this producer, director, writer, John Huston, right? And he was trying to get a script put together on this book, a good book, boring to read, but excellent, called Moby Dick. And so he hired Ray Bradbury to help him write the screenplay for Moby Dick, which then went on to be a huge success. And the New York World's Fair in 1964, got wind of Ray Bradbury because of that, and they asked him to help create the design for the upper pavilion of the Federal building that was there, which caught Disney's attention. And Disney then went ahead and had him design Spaceship Earth, which was the whole theme around Epcot Center. All because, you get this? Rather than sitting home and watching Netflix or whatever it is of his day, or Twilight Zone, or whatever it is of his day, he got up and took a walk on the beach because he felt like taking a walk on the beach. And then when he was awakened from his bed, he didn't say, "Oh man, I'm gonna not get up. I need my rest. I'm gonna do yoga in the morning. It's like, no, he was moved and he got up, and because he wrote something that happened to be picked up by a magazine that then happened to get him a screenplay that happened to get him into the World's Fair, which happened to get him Epcot. It's like, any one of those you can stop. But the important point here is sometimes you just got to get going. You got to get paddling out. Sometimes you're sitting on the shore and it's a big day and you just don't see the channel out there. And you're going to take a few of them on the head. But you know what? You've got to get going. You've got to start paddling out. And you may not know when that opening is going to be or where it is it's going to happen. But you keep going. It seems like you're getting nowhere. You're getting nowhere. I assure you, it seems like you're getting nowhere. And boom, all of a sudden, you're out there. And it's like, how did that happen? It's just you were in that place where all of a sudden there was an opening and you were available to that. But if you're busy on the shore planning, looking for the channel, waiting for the tide to change, you know that story. I just went through it. There was a baby camel sitting with his mom underneath the tree and said, "Mom, why do we got these humps on our back?" And she said, "Well, honey, we're desert animals, and they're so you can have water, and we'll go through the desert, and not, you can last sometime." "Wow, that's cool, Mom. Why do we have such long legs and these big round hoofs, feet?" She says, "Well, it's for walking in desert sand. It's just you're more mobile. You can work. You don't sink. It's better that way." I said, "Oh, and our eyelashes? Why are these eyelashes so? They're just always getting in the way." She said, "Well, that helps you to keep the blowing desert sands out of your eyes." And he said, "I get it. The humps are so I can have water in the desert, and the legs are for walking in the desert sand, and the eyelashes keep, the desert out of my eyes. But Mom, why do we live in a zoo?" It's like, your equipment doesn't do you any good unless you're in the action. The gifts that you have been given aren't doing you any good unless you're in the game or you're in the water or you're out there doing it with that which you have been given to do this world with. You can sit on the sidelines, you can sit in the bleachers, or you can get up and get in the game. The choice is yours, and how you choose to navigate these ever-changing times is what determines whether you're going to be living in joy or whether you're going to be living in misery. It determines what it is that is there for you. It's you gotta that change. That was last week's, but it's like when an era ends, and you're moving in because you have chosen to go. You may not fully know what it looks like, but you have to let go. When you were in high school and then you're in college, that's the end of an era, guys. There's no going back. You're done. How are you adjusting with that? Or maybe you were single and now you're married. Or maybe you're married and now you're single. Or maybe you were without kids and all of a sudden you got children. Or maybe you got children and all of a sudden now you don't. The house is empty. It's like these are the end of an era, the beginning of a new era. Are you able to trust that something inside of you that knows what the next step is and what it is? The good that you're creating, the magic and the wonder, the success. Because great part of happiness is creating what you love and sharing that. See, that's one of the keys here. What is your gift? What is it? You're not meant to sit under the tree in a zoo. You are meant to be able to bring this gift to humanity, to share your blessings, to share that which has blessed you and graced you. That is returning back to Spirit the gifts that have blessed you. His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, said your happiness isn't pre-made. It isn't self-made. It comes from action. Your happiness doesn't pre-made. It doesn't just give it to you. Okay, you're happy now. It comes from the satisfaction that comes from the action that you have taken to create the greater good in your life. And that comes from listening. Say, you know what? This is an infinite sea with untold treasures. I realize I've got to change here, and I'm going to paddle out. I'm not quite sure exactly where it's going to lead, or I know I'm going in that direction. I got a vision, but I know I need to get moving here with that. I'm listening to something in my soul. You ever listen to that something of your soul? Well, foundation class starts in January. I'll teach you how to listen to that soul, that spirit. Someone once, asked me, do I know what an artist and a musician have in common with the mystic? And it was that they are well aware and able to express without the tongue. That they're able to feel and sense that soul, and able to communicate without using the tongue or the language or the Spirit. Because Spirit speaks, but not always in words. I remember when I had the church in Hawaii, and I had a member of the congregation. His name was Clyde Icao. He owned the beach business of Waikiki, so if you needed surfboards or boats or anything like that, or suntan lotion, his company would take care of that. His brother was a guy by the name of Eddie Icao, who was the first lifeguard at Waimea over on the north shore of Oahu. And that's where you get those huge, enormous waves that come in a couple times a year that you see in the picture and go, wow. And they actually created a contest named Eddie, called the Eddie. And I remember Clyde, the first year was out, he gave me a bumper sticker that said Eddie would go. Well, the thing about Eddie is that he was a Hawaiian. He was just full on that expression, and he loved the water. He was known as a waterman. And they were trying to reenact the journey of the Polynesians to the Hawaiian Islands and the Hawaiian Islands back to Polynesia on these rafts, these reed rafts. And so they wanted to get some local natives that were there to do this, and they picked Eddie because he was a waterman. Nobody swam the big waves and the waters and the currents better than Eddie. And they were waiting to catch the current. You have to catch the current, and the tide and the time of the year was running out. And so they pushed out on one of the last days they could catch the current into back into Polynesia, and there was a storm, and they just got a little past Molokai, and their raft was flipped over, and everybody aboard the ship was hanging on for dear life. And the Halakali, it was the name of it, the Halakalia, and they were holding on, and the people, hypothermia was starting to set in. They were thinking that was about the end of it. Eddie said, "You know what? I will paddle in with a surfboard and go get help, because we're so many miles offshore." And what's interesting is the captain of that ship said he didn't think the crew was going to make it, but Eddie would make it for sure. Eddie was gone 20 minutes, a half hour, when the helicopters came by and spotted the ship upside down, and they were discovered. And Eddie was never seen again. He was gone. And so what Clyde shared with me is they never found Eddie's body. They never found the surfboard. He was just gone. And so the insurance company wanted to settle things. And on the year anniversary of Eddie's disappearance, Mom said, "Let's go down to Waimea." And they come from the lineage of the kahunas that served King Kamehameha. And so they brought in family, and Clyde was saying they were down there, and they lit the bonfire in late afternoon. And as the sun began to set, a dead whale's carcass rolled on into the bay and onto the shore. And they sat by the bonfire all night praying and praying and praying. And as the sun came up, the tide came back in, and it pulled that whale back out to sea. And Mom said, "That's my sign. My son's gone from this world." And I share that story because I was saying there's a language that's not in words. But there was a feeling there. There was a knowledge by the family and everyone that was present. That was Eddie's communication, that my time in this world is complete. Waterman, they're going to name a surf contest after me. Say I'm gone, But, it's not like a heavy thing or it's a bad thing. But what happens sometimes in our life when things go awry and we begin to label it as bad, how we navigate, as I was saying, decides whether it is joy or whether it is terror or horror. And a lot of times we will fail and we will stumble, but I will tell you, masterful manifestors never consider a failure, but rather it is information. And those masterful manifestors will tell you all the times that things didn't quite work out as they intended them to do that first time. Kim Jarrett didn't share with you that when she first came to Seaside, she went down and bought herself a condo down on the beach here in Encinitas. You learn from your first time through on how things work and how they don't work. And what's important is that we don't allow the fear of failure to stop us, because what I have noticed is those masterful manifestors, they feel the fear. But they don't allow the fear to stop them. They invite the fear to come along for this ride. We're paddling out, and you can come along because you're not going to stop me. And what will happen is this world will continue to try to get us to be stopped. But we only come this way once. We get this body one shot. And, you get to decide, am I going to navigate through this world and tiptoe and try to get to death without too many bruises? Or am I going to go all out? Am I going to go out and try to catch those big waves? Am I going to paddle out when I've got a little trepidation inside of me? Am I going to go for that vision, that fear? I may not know where the port is, but Polynesia is west. And I'm going, and I'm catching these currents, and I'm going with it, and I don't know what's going to happen. But what happened is not a failure. If anything, it would be failing forward. It would be gaining information. It would be gaining insight. And what this world will try to do is get you to think that this is not a good thing, but you've got to realize it's okay. I remember when I was learning to surf. My dad and mom got me my first surfboard at 11. I started kind of late, but I still remember Trancas Beach, going down there, going out in the water, my dad pushing me. Now, I got to tell you, when I was out in that water, those waves looked a lot bigger than I'm sure they were. But a little kid on a surfboard for the first time, it's like I'm looking back at my mom on the beach and my dad, but I didn't say, hey, I think I need a little bit more therapy here before I attempt this. I don't need to wait a little bit longer. Wait for the waves to get smaller, wait to get more confidence, and wait to have more I'm going for it. And I tell you what, you could call that failure, that first drive. I still remember this longboard going nose first into the water, flying who knows where, swimming back up to the top for dear life. It was probably only a few inches of water, but it seemed like it was the depth of the Marianas Trench. But you know what? There was exhilaration, there was life, there was thrill, there was let me back at it again, God. And in our life, we may have failed and things may not have worked out, but it's how we choose to navigate, whether it's with joy or with trepidation. It's totally up to us. And it's true in our life, and it's true within the larger picture. It's also true within our nation. I mean, yesterday, just a horrendous, heinous act of murder again in our country. And I've noticed my colleagues, the ministers, listserv, nobody even was writing anymore. I mean, a year or two ago, they said, we're getting exhausted responding to the spiritual stuff. But what I recognize is that, you know what? I've got to believe that what is going on cannot rob me of holding on to the position that, you know what, there is a greater good that is merging in our country, and what is coming to the surface has been lurking there, didn't just happen. And that I don't know how long we've got to go down this road of unrest, or how many lives have to be lost, or how many people need to be killed before it is realized you cannot create the future imagined by taking lives. That, the hatred, you can't have hatred create greater happiness. You cannot have oppression creating a greater sense of security. You cannot have evil acts creating a sense of holiness, no matter what a fanatic may be saying or thinking. There is something that needs to be cleaned up that is going on. And the Talmud, there is a line from the Talmud that says, "Do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk humbly now. You're not obliged to complete this work, but neither are you free to abandon it." There was a story of a guy who was on the outside of a city. This was before Abraham was. And this city was known for its wildness, and he came there and sat outside the city to change their ways. And after months and years, the city wasn't going to change. And a delegation came out and said, "What are you doing? Nobody's going to change. What are you still doing here?" And he said, I get it. They're not going to change, but I refuse to let them change me. There was a sense of, you know what? There's some work that needs to be done. We plant seeds for the future. We water those seedlings that are coming up, recognizing that they are to carry something to a place that we'll never see. But we have a faith in the future. We build a foundation that we don't yet fully develop. It needs to be taken care of later on down the road. But there's something that I can do now. There's a yeast that I can add to the global emerging consciousness of peace and love for our brothers and sisters in this world. And I'm not going to allow the atrocities that are going on to make me think that, you know what, that God is not omnipresent. That right in the midst there somewhere, I have got to choose love over hatred. I've got to realize it's not through oppression or killing that we are going to move into that future that we imagine. And here is a couple lines that came from a rabbi up in L.A., Rabbi Mark Borovitz. And he said, our hearts, this came out last night, our hearts and prayers are with our brothers and sisters in Pittsburgh. As Jews, we are filled with hope and promise. And today's tragedy, the worst in our history in America, has to be responded to with hope, change, and justice. Tomorrow, which is today, we're going to do a vigil at 6 o'clock at the Federal Building on Wilshire in L.A. And we have to keep faith and participate in our democracy. Send love and hashtag stand with Pittsburgh. We Jews have been subject to anti-Semitism for thousands of years. And our response has been and must continue to be resilience, living our principles, and standing up to hatred with strength and faith. This is not a time to hate. This is not a time to participate in and with any groups or people that want to spread hate and negativity. This is a time to change the conversation to what can be done to the future and our principles of hope, love, and truth, justice, compassion, and kindness. Never make an excuse that affirms your powerlessness. Got that? Don't make an excuse. It is the times. Never make an excuse that affirms you're powerless. You've got to hold the faith. Faith is what we do between the miracles. Faith is when you're paddling out and the channel hasn't opened up and you're taking them on the head, but there's something inside of you that knows there's some waves for you to ride in life. And people are going to sit there in their judgment. People are going to sit there and jump on a bandwagon that doesn't produce the love and that future of brothers and sisters around this planet, that recognizes the equality and the diversity of all cultures and people everywhere. And there's going to be people wanting to put in their ideas that think, maybe you need to look at it like this. There was this dad who was on a train with his 24-year-old son, and the train was starting to pick up some speed and moving along, and the 24-year-old son jumped up with excitement, looked out the window very loudly. He said, "Look, the trees are going behind us, Dad." And the dad looked at him, and behind him there was this younger couple, and they were like kind of, why, this kid's pretty loud, it's kind of immature, you could it's starting to like take pity on this old man. And then the kid said, "Hey, Dad, look at the clouds are running with us on the train, running along." And the couple behind him finally said, "Sir, I think you may want to take your son to a good doctor." And the man said, "Well, that's just what we did. He's coming back from a good doctor. He was born blind and he just got some eyes. And this is the first time he's been on his way home." Let's not jump to judgment by saying, this is bad, this is horrible, this is how I think it needs to be fixed. Because there is a higher intelligence that is operating here. This is that infinite sea that has untold treasures that we are talking about here. But something in me needs to shift or change to be available for a new God-given answer that hasn't shown up yet. If I keep doing the same thing I've been doing and expect different results, what's the saying? Crazy, right? It's like opening up the refrigerator, taking out the bottle of milk, taking a swig, and sour, you put it back. And thinking it might be better next time. It's like it doesn't work like that. You've got to realize, okay, I'm open for change. This is the vision, the direction. This is where I'm going and heading, and I'm paddling out that way, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get to that destined port, but I know there's something inside of me that knows how to get it, and I'm going to listen to that. I'm going to move in alignment with that. I'm going to just trust, and I'm going to choose my navigational instruments of joy and love in the face of anything that comes my way. I mean, there's a master walking down the street. I think he was heading home or something. Is catching a ride. And he was walking, and this one guy comes rushing out of a building and smacks right into this guy. And then the guy goes berserk. He gets upset. He rages. And this master teacher just kind of bows and said, I don't know who's responsible for this encounter, and I'm not inclined to take the energy for us to investigate. But if it's me, please pardon my mistake. And if it's you, don't matter. Don't worry. And he bowed and walked away. It's like, well, that neutralizes things right away. Same experience, two different navigational tools going on there. You're paddling out. Are you going out with fear? Or are you going out with joy? Are you going out with trust and bold? Or are you going out with trepidation and a sense of hesitancy? The choice is yours. And so this teacher, he gets into the car with one of his students who's giving him the ride home. And, this teacher's not necessarily big on politeness, but, he's graceful, he's courteous and all that. And the student, just, riding down the road, out the window of this traffic officer, he kind of yells at him. And after he yells at the traffic officer, he kind of excuses himself and says, I'm not really big on this politeness thing. I believe people should know where I stand and what I feel. Politeness is like a bunch of hot air. And the teacher said, yeah, I can see why you say that. But you do realize that's what's inside the tires of this car. And it makes those bumps a lot easier. It's like, okay. So the kid drops him off. He just says, so how do I find a worthy master to teach me when I get back to my country? He said, everywhere. Everything will teach you if you pay attention. The birds, the leaves, a smile, a tear. See, that's the treasure. We're in this infinite sea. And what separates the masterful manifestors from those that are sitting on the shore telling us how we should be catching the waves are they're the ones who take action. They're the ones who find the satisfaction with their actions. And if it doesn't turn out like they thought, well, that is about failing forward, leaning into it, being willing to navigate through this tumultuous time, realizing there is an opening and there is a way through to the vision that you have been given, because with Spirit, all things are possible. And whatever is needed to bring that vision that you have been entrusted with is there waiting for you. You just need to get past some of those waves that are coming down on your head. You just may need to get past some of your stuff that is piled up, that is denying you, that is keeping you shackled to the dock because you're afraid to let it go. Well, I'm telling you to unshackle that, pick up your board and paddle on out. God bless you as you do that. I love you. Hey, let's keep it going as we bring Angel Travis back to our stage.
Let your arms enfold us through the dark of night. Will your angels hold us till we see the light? So the all weary eye
This is Angel Travis. My goodness. Wow, perfect for today. Let the angels walk us through the light. That's it when we choose to.